Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. I think I'll just get right into the comments. A couple of little house cleaning things before we start. To anyone who's watching the stream for the first time, thank you for joining us. Couple of ground rules to make this easier for everyone. Over here, there. If you put some question marks before any questions to me, it helps me see them in the stream in the comments. If you just ask a question without that, I may just scroll past it thinking you're talking to each other. There's a lot of information I'm sorting through. So the best bet of me catching my eye is to give me those little magic question marks. And everyone, please, please, please only ask any one question one time. I answer them in the order they come in. So if you ask me a question and I haven't answered it yet, look at where I'm at in the stream. I have not gotten to it yet, by and large. So if you ask it three times, it makes me think that my scroll has gone crazy and I've lost my place, which makes it difficult to do this. The other thing is it's very common for people to be behind in the stream for whatever reason. They can get sometimes 15 minutes behind the stream, especially if there was a skip this ad in 4-3-2-1 at the beginning. You just always start a little bit behind behind the eight ball. There should be a little icon that says live, or it'll say like -103 or something. Just click find the button on your screen to make sure that you're all in sync. And life is better. Last little bit of things, information for people to know is sometimes the audio goes weird. It's typically on your end, not that there's anything wrong with you. If that happens, leave the stream and come right back in. It usually sorts itself out. It's been months since we had any audio issues on this end, though we did have some for a while and we got all that sorted out. So anyway, with all that boring stuff, I got to remember to say stuff on here as much as possible. At least during the first 30 minutes, we say stuff. Out of the way, let's get to people's comments and questions. I'm just the replacement opening act, man. Sorry. Thanks, Mr. Mont. I appreciate that. Side note, as a tech, I don't feel great when someone comes to me and says, hey, I found these mods on the internet, do someone else's mods. That said, what I'm suggesting is not, hey, here's how to amp. It's pretty basic stuff that I've just put into a concise list. Most good techs will know this already. But if you go to my Fender reissues playlist, there are upgrade mods for the Princeton reissue and all the other 65 reissues and 68 reissues. If you were to just watch that and make a little bullet list version of it and ask your tech to take care of that, they'll be glad to. But don't say, hey, watch this video for this guy telling you how to do your job. It puts them in a weird spot, starts your relationship with them in a weird place. No one wants to be told their job by some schmuck on the internet that they don't know, the schmuck knows what he's talking about, but there's very little guarantee of that on the internet, and people get really tired of it. And I get people asking me if I know how to do this guy's mods or that guy's mods, and sometimes I've got to say, yeah, it's not that guy's mods, it's just what everyone does. Sometimes I say, oh, I could, but I like my clients too much to do that person's mods. Because I used to put out mods for various amps on the internet forums, I would have people contact me at Psionic Audio asking if I knew how to do the Lyle Caldwell mods, and by luck, I did. But there's also a lot of bad stuff out there. John Hogg says Korg USA's Reverb Shop has factory B-stock AC15C1 at 900 and C2 at 800. That's cool. That's a good price, especially, man, an AC15C2, that's pretty rare. I've not seen too many of them in the wild, but that's a very loud amp. It's just a little bit quieter than the AC30. That's kind of like if there was such a thing as the what do you call it? The Cinderella, the perfect fit. It's just a little bit louder than the AC15, not quite as loud as the AC30. Hey, Cat's Music Journey. I wish I knew your name. It's weird saying Cat's Music Journey. Is it Cat? In which case, hello, Cat. Um, and if you don't want to use your real name on here, I can understand that. Looking forward to the show is the thumbnail from the first batch of film scans. Sadly, no. Goldilocks, thank you. Thank you. Alan in Berlin, Diego Roinish. Goldilocks, that's what I was looking for, not Cinderella. Sorry, been a while. Um, Back to the question. The thumbnail is the same thumbnail that I used on the 54 5C3. I just uh, changed the aspect ratio and changed it to black and white because I was running late and did not have a thumbnail suitable for this stream today. But I am waiting to get the scans from the second batch of black and white. The first batch I've got, and I went through those a couple streams ago with mixed results. Most of which I don't like the uh, the developer and scanner that I used in town. So for the second batch of 3 rolls, and I don't want to bore everyone who's not into photography, I'm trying the Darkroom, which is I think in LA, which is a nationally known service, and I've heard great things about them, and I've heard not so great things about them. Mostly great. I'm giving them a try. So that's 1 roll of Tri-X, 1 roll of Portra 400, 1 roll of Kodak Gold. Fingers crossed, and I've got 2 other services I'm going to try after the Darkroom with the other batches and see where we end up. I was hoping that I'd have those back maybe to share at the end of the stream, but as of yet, they are not in my inbox. But I only mailed them off Monday or Tuesday, I guess, because Monday was a holiday. So I mailed them off Tuesday, I guess, and we're waiting for that to happen. Hey, stuck in the bit. In my own production and recording, do I tend to lean towards using headphones or monitors? Well, for mixing, I like monitors, though I always reference on 2 different sets of headphones. I've got the Beyerdynamics DT 770 Pros, which are my, hey, this is what the world should sound like headphones. And they're very comfortable, so I use them if I'm doing like a live stream with Keith where we don't need to hear each other echoing. We'll go to cans. And I've got some MDR 7506 Sonys, which are kind of like, and this is what it's going to sound like on most car stereos or home stereo systems, with a little bit of a treble accentuation, a little bit of scoop. If you know the headphones, you know what I'm talking about. So I do check things on both kinds of headphones, but I'm using some Yamaha HS7 monitors here, and for the stuff that I'm doing, they're very, very accurate. Now, I'm not in a treated room. I would not do a mix in here for real. And I'm just doing stuff for the channel. So it's pretty much just guitar and occasionally bass frequencies and spoken word. But, just in terms of all the hard metal surfaces and the dimensions of this room, this is not an ideal space. But I prefer monitors because you can get really up your own with the headphones, chasing that reverb trail of perfection that you just don't hear in a real world situation. It's nice to have all that dialed in perfectly, but you can also just spend all your time chasing minutia that doesn't matter, or scooping the mids so that one set of speakers sounds perfect, and then all of a sudden on another set of speakers, like, where did everything go? It's just, you got to check a whole bunch of things. Always check in your car. And if I were doing this for real, I would have some really terrible sounding aura tones or similar. Maybe I got my wife a set of USB Bluetooth powered 2 speakers and a subwoofer for her office because she was listening on some terrible stuff. And it's like a $200 setup. It's not Bose, obviously. I don't support them, but I don't remember the brand now. Everything sounds pretty good, but everything sounds like what it is. They are 2 small computer speakers. I think they're like 4 inches, max, with a subwoofer. And so I like to take stuff back there and check it out once in a while. It's kind of what it would sound like on most people's high-end TV room kind of thing. Sorry, these are the things that interest me. These between the photography stuff, the video stuff I do, the lighting, the audio, that's not related to amps. This is why I'm thinking of doing a second channel if the world needs another channel on such things. But I have all these things that interest me that don't directly relate to the amplifiers, and I'm used to talking about things that interest me and having people also be interested. So it might be a good ego check for me to start from scratch on a second channel and have 75 subscribers like I used to have and get a little bit more taste of the real world. But anyway, if I talk to people in my day-to-day life about these things, they fall asleep or avoid me. So, hey, William, 2014 AC15 hand-wired fawn with Alnico Blue. 1100 worth it or not? Uh, American, yeah, absolutely worth it. I'm not, I don't know. And euros, yes, absolutely. I don't know where you are in the world. It's a good amp. It's not nearly as good as Vox made it out to be in the marketing, and all the reviews say this is just as good as a 60s. It's not. And there are a lot of things that need to be done to those hand-wired series to make them sound more pleasant and to make them sound more like an actual Vox. I've shown that on the channel. And certainly 1100 is a better price than they used to be, especially new. So yeah, I think it's absolutely worth it. The speaker alone is a $300 speaker if you buy a new one. I like the sound of the hand-wired. I love the sound of the hand-wired once it's made into an actual JMI kind of circuit. But out of the box, between the hand-wired AC15 with Alnico or the AC15 custom with Alnico, with the blue Alnico, the X version, I'd say out of the box, the custom sounds more, is a better amplifier. And I don't particularly like the look or the longevity of the Fawn Tolex. That Fawn basket weave just like peels up or scratches if you look at it too hard. But if you do like it, it is a good amp and is worth $1,100 easily. Hey, Ister Putt, good luck with that. I'm not I don't know that model. I don't know how suitable it is for various things, but I'm sure it'd be fine. You know, I am neither an Engel lover nor an Engel hater. I just haven't seen many Engels. I think I've had one or two on the bench out of the last 15 years. I know other people get them a lot at different parts of the world. Well, I think if you can get a used or open box AC15 custom and put a blue and change tubes and be at the same point, you're actually gonna have a better amp in reality. But in terms of resale value and people's the general public's perceived quality level, the hand wired is better, and that's not a bad price for a hand wired. I just, whose hands at this? They're not hand wired particularly well, and they have cheap pots and they've got cheap caps that sound kind of brittle and they're over filtered. The hand wired version, whereas the custom series got pretty much everything pretty close to right out of the box. It can be made even better, but it's not a bad amp at all. Especially for the price, it's amazingly good. Hey, Daraya Darren, Istanbul, nice. I lived for a year and a half and dated for over 2 years a lovely woman from Izmir, and then later Istanbul, and she lives here now. And so I have always wanted to go. I enjoyed getting to know her and her family and get that insight into the culture and the food. I'm sorry that things ended the way they ended, but that is life, and we had a good 2 years. And if she ever were to see this, I wish her and her lovely family very well. And I've always wanted to go to Istanbul. I was watching, on a side note, I was watching From Russia with Love last night. So that's a little aspect of Istanbul. And my current wife has been there. She went about a year after we met. So she's been there. I have not. Apparently, all my wife and my exes have been to Istanbul. I've not. That's my lot in life. But I do have a They Might Be Giants album. So, hey, Gerben, got on my quest to find the best amp ever for him. I have options on two thoughts. Koch Ventura, market as California 50s, mid 60s with 6v6s, PRS HRX, HDRX 20. I have not played either amp. I've not seen inside either amp. I've been inside a different Koch, Cook, however you want to do it, amp, and it was really well built, and the sound was quite nice, but that was a different model. I've heard very good things about the HDRX 20, but I've not heard a lot about them from other techs. I have seen a photo of the inside, and I did not see any Danger Will Robinson stuff in the photo. It looked okay, it looked sane, unlike some of the stuff PRS puts out. I cannot tell you which is better, which is right. They're going to be very different sounding amps. Play them if you get a chance to play them and see which one speaks to you. In the price range of the HRDX 20, I would also urge you to check out the various 20-watt offerings that Friedman has, which are going to be at a similar price point, give you some similar sounds. But that's a known factor as far as that. That's really, I know that's good quality. I know there are no oops in those Friedmans. So I'm sorry I can't give you any more information than that. Hey, Martin, yeah, that Bassman really does sound good. I was torn with whether to feature that or the P2P with the new speaker or the 53 Deluxe, 54 Deluxe, or the AC or the 65 AC50 on today's stream. And yeah, I cut that Gordian knot by running out of time. I didn't have time to set any of those up for you right now. I spent a lot of last night and will be spending a lot of this afternoon editing a video with a looper, with two loops being played through the Uncle Larry's P2P amp and the 54 5C3 with the same tube types in each. Not the same tubes, because I didn't want to deal with that, swapping them back and forth. But the 5C3 came in with a 12EX7 and V1, so I put a 12AY for the test. So it's a little more apples to apples. They're different species of apples, you know, Macintosh and Honeycrisp maybe, but you know, still apples to apples. Through 4 different speakers, all mic'd with the Royer R10, the same distance and the same relative location of the speaker, and that mic is very forgiving about mic placement. So when I get that video done, you're going to hear each channel of each amp through the ET65 in my shop cab, the Veteran 30 in my shop cab. Now, while both speakers are in the same cab and they do influence each other, you can still hear the differences in the speaker because which one's being mic'd. The P12Q, which is in the 54, and a Celestion Creamback, which is in the P2P. So I think that'll be a fun video, but doing that kind of stuff, editing that kind of stuff takes a while. So I did it a lot last night and I got sick of it and walked away from it. And then I've had other things happening this morning. So that is to come when it's done. But yeah, back to your question, that Bassman did sound particularly great. And that's a really nice amp. And I might have some more on that Bassman on the channel before it goes home, because it is awfully nice to play. Hey, still liking the AC15C1 very much. Tweaking the op-amp gains may end up adding a breakout PCB. Truly bypass the reverb via fit switch, but a bit pressed for product. There's no need to truly bypass the reverb. Just it's an op-amp mixer, so the mixing is not adding any noise or changing the dry tone at all. If you don't want to have the reverb, just have the reverb all the way off. Just turn the pot all the way down. There's just not much else that needs doing on that. So if you have the AC15C1, I would say probably, going back to your previous question, you have a lot of overlap between that and the PRS HDRX 20, whereas the Koch Ventura would probably give you more different sounds. I'm not saying that the AC15 and and the PRS sound the same, but you can get some very Marshall-esque sounds out of an AC-15. Today, after testing, I discovered I don't particularly enjoy a Stingray bass pickup, at least passive. Hey, Sash, is there a bass sound I don't particularly enjoy or care for? Well, everything depends on context. Um, like the Jocko sound, the bridge pickup on a jazz bass played right back by the bridge, with an awful lot of people use that because they love Jocko's sound, and they sound kind of nasal, and it's nasal and it's percussive and it cuts, but they don't sound very good. But you listen to Jocko do that, or listen to um, oh, what is his name? Who plays with um, where is my mind? Not Kim Deal, obviously, but Rocco. Is it Prestia? Um, what is hip? Um, I can't. My brain is not functioning. The San Francisco band with all the horn section. Anyway, well, he does it. Jocko does it. It's awesome. Other people do it. It's like, oh, they're doing a Jocko, and it doesn't sound that great. Tower of Power. Thanks, man. Rocco Prestia. Tower of Power. Thank you. I mean, these are things that normally I just have, but as soon as the camera is rolling, my brain. Um, so, in the right hands, that sound is fantastic. I'm not a big fan of the active Marcus Miller sound. Again, it's great when Marcus Miller does it, but when everyone else does it, it's like, okay, yeah, we heard you. You slap and you pop. Yeah, there it is. Uh huh. It doesn't work in this country song, but there it is. Thank you, Dibby Khaki. Yeah, I love this Hamilton Khaki. Um, yeah, Rocco Prestia, phenomenal, and you can see why I went to him. You listen to that Jocko album. He spent some time with Tower of Power, obviously, and the "What Is Hip" line is, man. I tried it and tried it and tried it back when I was doing bass all the time, and it just tears you up. Uh, he's a an incredibly gifted and clean player, but mostly I don't like the ultra scooped active slap pop sound for most people, as most people use it, and I don't like the sound of a subwoofer where it's like you're going after like super mega dub, and all you end up with is super mega mud. Hey, Jorge. I do not have any thoughts on the Trainer YVC40 because I do not know that model at all. If it comes to the Vintage 30, well, that's a good speaker with most amps, but I don't have any thoughts on that amp in general, let alone on DC heaters. Sorry, I, I need to put a disclaimer. I've got a little preset where I can send people to the Valve Wizard. I need to little preset thing that pops up on the screen that says, I live in Memphis. It's a long ass way from Canada. I don't have, I don't get many trainers. Ask someone in Montreal, ask someone in Quebec City, ask someone in Toronto. They're going to have an awful lot of experience with trainers. And that's just a geographic, hey, this place is just an oddity of geography. 200 miles from trainers, every direction. I just don't see very many of them. The ones I have had in, especially the YBA1 Bassmasters, those are awesome amps. Hey, Dibby Khaki. My Fender Hot Rod DeVille 3 is a weird thing. Sometimes it takes 20 minutes to get a sound. Until then, it's very quiet. This happens if I use it for 2 hours. If I use it for 2 hours, it happens the next day after. Um, it sounds like you might have. It could just be a tube that's got an intermittent connection in the tube. It could also be a broken solder joint in the amp that, as things get hot, things swell up and move and expand and contract in such a way that you do have contact after 2 hours. Um, One of the ways to test, especially on a hot rod, is turn the amp on, and plug in your guitar into the effects return jack and play. It won't sound great, but if you hear something, then your problem is in the preamp, before the effects loop. If you don't hear anything at that point, you probably have a problem in the power section. But it's most likely to be a solder joint, which is not great. On all the hot rods and all the Blues Deluxes, it's very, very common. Three things. First of all, the entire board is held to the top of the chassis by all the pots and the jack, and they get stressed, and you get broken solder joints. They're kind of held in place, but as things vibrate, they make and break connections. It's possible that it's just not making a connection. Second of all, the filter caps, as they begin to fail, they begin to arc. As they begin, they'll heat up so much that the lead-free solder joints kind of separate around the lead, and then they arc or they burn. And they can also be intermittent like that. You can have a little bit of carbon building up. That's once it gets hot enough, it begins to conduct. And the third thing is all of the hot rods and Blues, the low voltage supply overheats the board, burns the board, damages the traces and pads, and all the solder joints fail from the lead-free solder, which does not handle that temperature over time. And then you could have something intermittent. And if that connection goes in and out because of heat, that's going to take out your effects loops, going to take out your reverb. It's all kinds of stuff. So it's probably something pretty simple to fix, but usually would require a tech to go through it and double check everything. Hey, Bill Lavonda, what's my favorite coffee? Of the coffees that I routinely can get, while I really did enjoy the coffee that David and his wife sent me, which is particularly fine for iced coffee, I found. And I'm going to order some more from them to try some of their other blends. As far as the things that I have tried that I really prefer, I really like French Truck. The French Truck has got I think it's a cafe special that I really like a lot, but I don't buy it because it's very, very expensive. And lately I've just been getting the Kroger Donut Shop blend, which is their version of Dunkin' Donuts, because it's drinkable and it's usually on sale, and everything is crazy expensive right now. And I drink an awful lot of coffee, so I don't need it to be an awful lot of expensive coffee. Hey, Wes, good to see you. If I don't greet you by name, that does not mean that I do not appreciate you being here, or that I don't look forward to seeing you. It's just Wes has been one of the longest time supporters of the channel, and he just entered the chat. So I especially wanted to give him a shout out. And Greg there in St. Louis, Greg did such a great job on that baffle of that 59 Bassman, and it has gone to back to its good and loving home next to the 58 Bassman. I had that 58 Bassman here that I did all that work on, and it was for sale, and no one bought it, which is a shame because it's a gorgeous amp. And the same client has semi-matching Bassman now, 59 and 58. So it's nice to have such toys, don't you think? Yeah, well, the thing is, the pads are replaceable. I don't use them except as a backup. I use the 7506s as a C, monitors for A. The Beyers are my B rig, and then the Sonys are C. Or if I'm traveling, I know I'm going to be on an airplane for 10 hours, I bring the Sonys because they fold and they take up least space. And if I lose them, I'm out the least amount of money. Because I don't do the little white in-ear things. I'm not ready to work at Cloud City. And also the Sonys are comfortable enough for long-term use. Hey, happy birthday! Everyone wished Amnesia a happy birthday. Congratulations for making it around the sun one more time. You're very, very welcome. I'm glad I was able to help you out. I'm a journeyman idiot. Making progress. Hey, Hamilton, looking to possibly get more volume from my 583 kit. Has a Jensen P12Q, which I do like the sound of. Any suggestions? They are expensive but maybe worth it on the Alessandro. Well, I've not tried the Alessandro with a 583, but I have tried the Alessandro with deluxe reverbs, and the core character of that would sound very good, I think. Wait until you hear the video that's going to come out tomorrow or maybe Monday showing a 5E3 and a 5C3 through all the speakers that I mentioned earlier. I like the sound of the P12Q. The P12Q is not as loud as the ET65, the Veteran 30, or the Creamback 65. And I don't know how much of it is the P12Q and how much of it is the narrower, more shallow dimensions of the 5C3 cabinet, but it definitely has less low end than the other three. And it's got more up highs in comparison. It's not a bright speaker, and none of the others are dark speakers, but having done the comparison using a looper with everything, the chain recorded the same way, both what the mic picked up and what I heard in the room, the P12Q has the least output, while not being a low output speaker, has the least amount of lows, and the trebles the treble frequencies are a little more apparent. So I do like the P12Q, but it would not be my choice as a main speaker after doing this comparison for myself. But this is all subjective. Whatever you like is the right answer for you. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's the thing about the playing test in general, or the thing I'm working on with this. Most people are, I get so many comments, people are hard to satisfy. I want to hear more clean stuff. I want to hear more jazz stuff. I want to hear more rock stuff. Like I did the Yamaha whatever Revstar review, and I had we were lucky enough to get Logan to come over and play, because he's a phenomenal player, and he's with a actual 65 or 66 deluxe reverb. I think a 65. And I'm not going to tell Logan Hanna what to play. He's a brilliant player. And he plays in that kind of clean, jazzy style with a little bit of country, a little bit of blues thrown in, because that's what he feels. And that's what, he plugged the guitar into the amp, set the amp how he normally sets the deluxe reverb, and started to play. And I'm not going to tell him, no, play something more aggressive. Play something like Stevie Ray. And I get people saying, man, that sounds great, but I don't play jazz. It's too clean for me. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm sure that when I put the video up showing the two amps, each channel of the amps to 4 different speakers with a really good player who did the loops for me, someone's going to say, well, I don't play that country shit. I want to hear some rock. I'm like, buy one and show us. You do your own videos and show us how it should be done, I guess. I'm not saying that to you. I don't think I don't think a 5E3 is the best way to start. Like I say, if you want to get into building things, start with pedals. Your mistakes will cost a lot less and much less likely to kill you. Thank you, Stuck in the Bit. Appreciate that. €10. That reminds me, the last time I was there, I had to get some cash out, because there are occasional places that don't take your phone. You can't just swipe, and you have to have cash. And I was reminded that I have a U.S. wallet, and Euro bills just stick right out. So it's kind of a nice thing. It feels like you're flush, because the money's just sticking out of your wallet. That's why you have to put your wallet in your front pocket. Yeah, they used to be under $500. Airholic, yeah. When I did the amps under 500 video, use AC15 was my choice for the ultimate winner. I don't know if there are any available under 500. I think the $500 of what was that 3 years ago is now our $1,000 if we're lucky. Hamburger costs more than ribs now. We used to do hamburger, some dish with hamburger once a week, and ribs were the occasional splurge. Now, buying hamburgers is the occasional splurge. We do spare ribs maybe once a week. Yeah, that's the thing about shipping apps. Gets really heavy, and hence expensive. Local pickup's always the best bet if you can. I mean, if you're out in the middle of Montana, sorry, you're going to have to drive somewhere pretty much. But you also get a chance to play the app before you make a purchasing decision, because there's a lot of stuff sold on Reverb and eBay, etc., or various marketplaces. Caveat emptor. Thank you, Stuck in the Bit. Appreciate that. Yeah, I want to make sure it's because I have something actually interesting to say, and that would actually be of value to people, not just another way for me to spread my ego out across the internet. It's you have to question your own motives at all times. There are times when I got 77,000 subscribers. That's like a stadium. And then I don't get 77,000 views on every video. Someone watched a video, liked it, hit subscribe, has never watched another damn thing I've done. They don't really care. They've forgotten they've subscribed to me. You have to dial this stuff back. You can't let it, the good or the bad of YouTube, give you any, have any effect on your sense of self-worth. It's a weird headspace to be in. It's like local cable access, only people actually watch it. Yeah, I would go tomorrow. Well, I'd check the political climate. Since everything's kicked off hardcore in Syria, Istanbul has been much lower on my list than it was before, and I'm not a big fan of the current government compared to how they used to be. But I can say that about a lot of places much closer to home, like right outside my goddamn front door. Hey, Troopin. Had a question last week about a muddy DSL 40C. De-glued the preamp section and got the brightness back. Good. Still sounding flubby. Looking into cathode bypass caps next. This is helping me learn stuff. Well, I'm sorry that you're having to work on your own amp in order to learn stuff. You shouldn't have to. Marshall has really screwed a lot of owners over by using a glue which has become conductive and corrosive. And you'd think when you're working at the level that Marshall production works at, or Fender, everything's supposed to be up to ISO standards, International Standards Organization. And so there are certain things that that you do or do not use. You use this kind of solder because it's rated for sale in the EU. It's safe to use, it's lead-free, and it works well with the wave soldering process and meets any stress, mechanical stress or heat-related variance issues that are required. Well, you use this adhesive because it has these properties. These adhesives are not to be used. No one's doing their homework. They're just pumping the crap out as cheap as possible, and with a 1 or 2 year warranty. And if it lasts longer than that, they've done all they need to do there. If they've done their due diligence. Meanwhile, the brand is just a ghost of its former self. What's the difference in tone and volume using the normal 1x12 speaker out and 1x12 extension cab versus just using the normal out to a 2x12 8-ohm cabinet? Well, if you're using if you have the internal speaker connected and an external speaker connected, both 8-ohm, then you're going to have a 4-ohm load versus the 8-ohm load the amp is expecting. And the amp will be fine with that. It'll be safe. You're talking about a 5E3. You'll lose about 1.5 to 3 dB from doing the mismatch 8 to 4 ohm, but you'll gain about 3 dB by doubling the amount of speakers. So you'll have about maybe a little more volume doing 2 12-inch speakers versus 1, because you're also having an impedance mismatch. Versus if you just use the normal out to a 2x12 8-ohm cabinet, you're going to have definitely 3 dB gain increase, because you're doubling the amount of air moving. And depending on the cabinet and the efficiency of the speakers in the 2x12, you can gain more than that. It'll be, anyway, option B, using the normal out to an extension 2x12 8-ohm cabinet, is the loudest of the two options. Using an external 1x12 at the same time as your internal will be a little bit louder than using the internal by itself, but not as much as using the external, because you have an impedance mismatch using two 8-ohm speakers with an 8-ohm tap. But it's, it will be, option A is louder than just using internal by itself. And depending on the efficiency of the speaker that you're using and that 1x12 and the 1x12's dimensions, it may be really great. It's just not, if you're just trying to get the most level out, it's not as good as using an external 2x12. Thank you, Anza. Let's see, what did I get? I got the Electro-Harmonix EL34s for that 65 AC50, and I've had no issues with them. Now I'm buying from, those are from the Tube Depot, who do very good sorting, and I paid for the 24-hour burn-in and low noise and microphonics testing. And they sound great. I have previously liked the Mullard reissues, but the price on those has gone crazy high, and I'm not convinced that it's all that different than the Electro-Harmonix. The Tube Store EL34s are really good if you're in Canada. I've heard that shipping is to and from Canada has improved a lot lately, though it certainly was really bad starting in 2020. Then because of COVID, and later because of politics. And if you're just looking for the most reliable, maybe the JJs. I don't find that they sound the best, but neither do they sound bad, but they are extremely reliable in my experience. Hey, J. Emilio, I don't touch the Super Beetles and other solid-state Voxes from the Thomas Organ era because they used old germanium transistors, which are almost unobtainium today. And in order to do a Super Beetle, I may write down a list. I need to have 7 yellow germaniums. I need to have 13 green germaniums and 14 blue germaniums. Now, the yellow, green, blue, whatever, that's just a little dab of paint they put on there to denote the gain of that individual germanium transistor, because making germanium transistors was like a black art. And so you'd just make a bunch, and then you'd measure what you actually got. And this one's got a gain of 50. Let's mark that with yellow. This one's got a gain of 80. Mark that with blue. This one's got a gain of 100. Mark that red, whatever. And then you can use them in different parts of the amplifier. In order for me to do that today, I would have to buy like 300 germanium transistors. First, test all the duds, and that's like 200 out the window that you have to pay for, and then go through all the rest and sort them out. And after the end of that, I might say, well, I'm short one blue. I'm going to go buy another 50 to get a blue, one that'll test as a blue. And then, at the end of the day, it's going to sound like a late 60s solid-state Vox, which is, you pay an awful lot for false nostalgia with those things. Are Vishay 1813 caps as good as Jupiter caps for vintage Fender? Well, Wolfgang Krauss, the answer to that is in the thumbnail. That's a 54 Fender 5C3 that I replaced the very leaky red Astrons with the Vishay MKT 1813s because they sound great and they do the job, and they're wonderful capacitors in every way. And I gave the owner the choice of getting red Jupiters, and he said, well, will they sound any better? No. What's the cost difference? About $1.75 per cap versus $12 per cap. Are you crazy? No, that's what they charge for Jupiters. So, yeah, like most sane people would. He went with the better sounding, less expensive, or the equally good sounding, less expensive capacitor, which just isn't as cosmetically close a match to the originals. My theory is use what Leo would use. Leo today would not use a $12 Jupiter. He'd say, are you crazy? He'd say, what can I get that's going to work? He'd probably go with the Panasonic ECQ series and just go from axial layout to radial layout. But of the axials on the market today, he would probably go with either the Mallory 150Ms or the Vishay MKT 1813s. And I like the MKT 13s better because the leads aren't as flimsy and don't get bends as easily. and they look nicer for about the same price. And these things matter. Um, it's much easier to get a consistent spacing on an amp with the MKT 1813s than with the Mallory 150Ms. If you're using the Mallories, they're fine cabs. I'm not criticizing the 150Ms. They're just not my preference in comparison. But and if you want to use the Jupiter red ones, that's fine. They're extraordinarily expensive. They're made in small batches in America, so it's a supply and demand thing. There's a very small demand. There's a tiny supply, and they cost a lot to make in small batches. So if you want that, you are getting what you paid for, but you are paying for the U.S. production and the physically large red styling, or the yellow version if you want the yellow one. But there's no difference in sound. The circuit and the transformers are most of the sound of that amp. Hey, Dave Castro, I think you asked us, either you asked us last time or someone else did. I have never even heard of Frenzel amps except in the last week's stream. So no experience, sorry. Yeah, I'd love to do more of that, Basement. Let's see where the week takes us, Martin. I've had a lot of stuff piling up that needs to get done. I have pretty much finished that AC50, and I've just got to do the last video on that. Maybe I'll show the AC50 and the Bassman in the same video for a playing thing, because they're comparable amps in certain ways in terms of the role that they would serve to a player, and they both sound glorious. But yeah, someone asked me, I think last week, what my favorite Bassman circuit was, and I hemmed and hawed and said I like a lot of different things. I think I gotta put this 6G6B or whatever variant it is. I always forget the string of letters numbers over the later 60s Bassmans. And I love the 58, 59, 60 circuit as well, but it's very, very different than the Tuxedo. I'm not sure which of the two. I'd like to have one of each. I'm not going to have them because I've got too many amps here at all times. I don't need to have any amps of my own competing for real estate. But if I were to make some, and I'd roll my own. I could even make one that gives one channel of each. And the other one I liked is the one I did on the channel. It said Wrecked Bassman. It was a kit build 61 or 62 Bassman that the kit builder had done a horrible job of, and the owner said, well, what can we do to make this thing worthwhile? And he already had a different similar amp to what the amp was supposed to be. And I said, well, it's a great amp. We can just, a lot of the good stuff happened from this amp. This is pretty much where both the Hot Rod, no, it's not the Hot Rod, the Overdrive Special and the Trainwreck took off from. And he said, ooh, tell me about the Trainwreck option. So I wrecked it. And that was a fun one to do, and a really good sounding amp as well. Hey, Flash Lightning Storm. Pretty happy with my Marshall's SV20C. Good. I've tried Heritage Greenbacks in a separate cabinet. I prefer the stock speakers. Do I have any speaker recommendations for this amp? I don't remember what the stock speakers are in that amp. Pretty much, and Greenbacks really are, the sound of Greenbacks is, besides the fact that there are a lot of different speakers made over the last 40 years that are called Greenbacks, the cab means so much. A straight cab 4x12 with Greenbacks is a very different sound than a 2x12 closed back or open back with Greenbacks. But a 20-watt Marshall, you don't need a ton of speakers. You just need a real characterful speaker. And depends on what your tastes are. Are you going for like a Van Halen thing, or are you going for like a Led Zeppelin thing or a Black Sabbath thing? For my tastes, thinking along the lines of Hendrix and Led Zeppelin that would also do some Cream stuff, or Aerosmith, I would go for a Creamback 65 or WGS ET65. But if you're more in the Van Halen thing, you'd probably want something a little bit brighter. And then it gets into which era of Van Halen. But I don't know that the SV20C would do Van Halen. So, I don't think Anything positive or negative about Amplified Nation amps, Michael? Because I've never used one. I've never had one in. I've heard good things about them. I've heard some not so good things about them, but I can't repeat that because it's just things I've heard in passing from techs. I don't have any experience with them myself. I hope they're great. Van Huysen, was that like the Penny's brand I'm thinking of, like Penny's prepackaged shirts there, Wes? Or that it goes well with Sanzabelt. Hey, thanks for the super chat. I have also not tried the Boss Artist amp, so I don't know what to tell you. I hope you don't feel you've wasted a super chat. For the record, I did answer his first question before he did a super chat. Super chats are appreciated. They are not necessary. I don't want anyone to feel that you have to bribe me to get me to answer a question, but it takes me a while to get to them. By the Boss Artist amp, is that like the Katana Artist? The modeling? I think that's one of the ones. Artist 50, Artist 100. I think those are in the Katana line. I've not tried them. I've heard that they're good, and as far as the user experience, but I've not tried them. My only concern with the Katanas is the longevity, by which I mean they're not going to last 20 years. They're not going to last 30 years. It's not going to be like here where I've got a 54 Fender and a 65 Marshall and a 64 Fender here, and they're going to go out of here and go for another 20 years. But they also, the Boss Katana stuff, the Artists and the regular, cost a hell of a lot less. So if you look at it like, all right, I got an iPhone, I pay for the iPhone, either I buy it or I add it to the contract with my carrier, and I know that in 3 to 5 years I'm going to want a different iPhone. As long as I'm fine with having paid X amount of money for 3 to 5 years worth of use out of it, and then in 3 to 5 years I pay X amount of money for something else, if you're comfortable with that, then the Boss Katana series, including the Artist 100, makes total sense. My concern that I try to raise is if you're a younger player and spending $300 on an amplifier requires, hey, I've got to mow more lawns this summer, then maybe you should take that into account, because you could have the Boss Katana 100 watt that gets all these possible sounds that may last 3 to 5 years, or I can get the AC15 that does like 1 or 2 phenomenal sounds, but it'll do it for 20 years, so. Hey, Gregory Nickerson. I have not had any experience with the Sir Bella. I have been inside a few other Sir amps, and every single one of them is built consistently and built well. And I have heard the Bella, and it is basically the mythical Fender 12-inch speaker, 40-watt Fender with a 1x12. Fender never made it. People are like, why didn't Fender make that? The Sir Bella is one instance of that. It's a clean amp with a reverb and a 1x12, and it's a really good amp. Fender has since come out with what they're calling the 68 Pro Reverb reissue. It's not a Pro Reverb, but it is Fender's new version of a 40-watt with tremolo and reverb with the 1x12. And it's priced about the same as the Bella, and I'm, without having had a Bella in, having had the Fender in, I can tell you the Sir Bella is by far the better amp. It's going to sound better. It's going to last better. It's certainly built better. And while it won't need much service, it'll be easier to service. Can I explain how and why diagnostically plugging into the return of the effects loop works? Well, in this situation earlier, the guy had Hot Rod DeVille or Deluxe, and it made no sound until the amp had been on for a while. So that tells me that something is changing as time goes on. It's probably as heat builds up, which means there's probably something not making contact until some metal expands from heat. So where in the amp is that problem happening? If it's happening in the preamp, then the power section should still work. And so if you plug the guitar into the effects return, it bypasses everything ahead of the effects return in the amp, and you're just plugging straight in the phase inverter pretty much. well, you're plugging into an op amp, which goes straight to the phase inverter and to the output tubes. And if you have sound there, the problem's not in your output section. It's not going to be a good sound. It's going to be dark and low level because the impedance is wrong for the guitar, most guitars to go straight into the effects loop. But it's a good diagnostic tool. The other thing you could do is you could plug into the input of the hot rod and take the effects send and either go into another amp. You could even go to the input of an amp if you watch your levels, or go into, if anyone's got a computer audio interface, it's basically taking a line out that's line level, but it's not speaker level. And if you have sound there, everything's fine up to the effects loop and the problems in the power section. It's just a way to interrupt the signal chain in an amplifier with anything that has an effects loop if it's a series effects loop. When you have a series effects loop, you can directly plug into the output section, or you can directly run the preamp stuff out to a different amplifier's output section. If you have two amps with effects loops, then you can run the preamp of one to the effects return to the other, and you can diagnose it even easier that way. Though sometimes you have ground loop issues. Hey, Rico. First build gigged with successfully. Very good. Modded F5F6A using a Blues Deluxe chassis and iron. Learned a lot. Sounds fantastic. Question. Adding crossline with foot switch bypass for attenuation between solos. Things to consider. Ooh. Crossline never sounds very good. It's easy to implement and be easy to implement with a foot switch, obviously. But it never sounds great. Did you use an effects loop? Because you could easily put well, if you're just building a 5F6A, your effects loop would be a passive insert, would be a bad choice to do that. You can do the cross line as long as you're not trying to do a massive reduction in volume, and it doesn't even have to be a pot. You can just say, all right, for the way I play, a 250K resistor or 220K resistor is my cross line, and and just connect that to one side of the switch, the other side of the switch to the other side of the PI, and then put like a 10 meg across it so that there's no pop. And then you go from 220K, that's your master volume engaged, to 10 meg 220K, which you're not going to hear. So thank you very much, Flash Lightning Storm. Appreciate that. Hey, William. I don't know anyone around St. Louis, but Greg down who was in the stream earlier. Hey, Greg Hopkins there. Killer Vintage has a great tech or two, he's saying. Greg knows all the guys in St. Louis. I do not. Hey, Texas True. Have I any experience with the newest version? Yeah, I had the AC15 and the 30. Oh, got them in right around Christmas, and so there are videos on those. They are better than the Fawn Tolex models. They are not great in stock form. They each had problems, which I resolved. Some of the problems were design. Some of the problems were, why the hell did they do that? Of the two, the 15 was by far the better amp. But for reasons that I go into those videos. But even so, they did a weird thing in the 15, in the 30, no 15. I had the 15 and the 10. That's right. I had the AC15 and the AC10, and the AC30 version is just the larger version of the 15. So the 15 and hence the 30 are better than the 10, but it still had some strange stuff happening in the tone stack. So I wouldn't seek it out at the prices that they're going for compared to the custom series. I also don't like the smooth Tolex that they have. Other than that, they're gorgeous. I mean, they're beautiful amps, and they sound quite good. But when it went home, it sounded better. So look for those videos. It's in my Vox playlist. Favorite band of the last 10 years. Of the last 10 years, that's tricky because most of the stuff I listen to is well more than 10 years old, which surprises me every time I think about it. I'm like, oh man, I love Radiohead. They're as old as I am. And my last favorite album, let's see, well, I guess my last favorite album was Dixie Chicks, or now just the Chicks, Taking the Long Way, which is what, 2007, and OK Computer by Radiohead is what, 1998, and Wilco. I don't remember which one was most recent, Sky Blue Sky or Wilco. Those are also old now. So probably um, probably currently Wet Leg I'm really intrigued by. I've not heard their album yet, but I've heard like 8 or 9 tracks from this current album and the previous, and I really like what they're doing on every level. I love how smart they are. I love how ironic they are, but while still having meaning. It's not just surface level irony. I'm fascinated by her control of her image in the media and by their sense of humor about things. And I just think it's really good. What's the best way to put this? When pop punk came out, like the Blink 182s and the Green Days, fuck that. It's crap. Especially the Blink 182 stuff. It all sounded whiny Southern Cal rich kids. Uh, but there's something about the intersection of real punk and real pop that's really interesting to me. And whether that's the expression that Wet Leg has, or that the Stooges had, or that Talking Heads had, or the Clash had, or Madness had, when it's like, hey, yeah, I this kind of music interests me, and at the same time, I like melody. You know, I like it when those two worlds collide in a non-contrived way. So Wet Leg is probably my answer right now. That said, I've not heard a lot of bands in the last 10 years that I like it all. Hey, Bill. Yeah, I didn't see it earlier. So Bill was had me do a bunch of work on his deluxe reverb, and he got the amp back, and he was very happy with it, and commented how quiet it was, and made him realize that his Friedman Runt 20, I believe it is, was not quiet. At first, he thought, well, it's a gainier circuit, just must be noisier. But the more he lived with it, the more he realized that something had to be off. Something was off with that Friedman. So he called me, and I said, well, here's the thing. There was a series of the Runts where they had a bad batch of ARS caps. You can check and see if they have black rubber at both ends of the caps. That's the bad series. If they got black rubber at one end and solid disc of silver metal at the other end, those are the good caps. And if so, Friedman will take care of that under warranty. He stands behind his stuff. Anyway, he called back and said, it's not that, and I've tried this, and I've tried that, and it goes away completely if I'm not plugged into the amp. And so I asked him a few more questions. It sounded like he had a bad ground. And I'm like, well, it could be this, it could be that, or it could be the other. And I said, wait a second, Bill, before we do anything that's going to cost you money, shipping an amp, whatever, that amp's got an IEC cable, right? I had to explain that that's the removable cable like you have on the back of a computer, as opposed to a wire that's permanently attached. And he thought it was a permanently attached one because it's a combo. He's got a combo version, and it's coming up from the bottom. He didn't see it, but he looked and said, oh, yeah, it's an IEC. I said, try a different IEC cable. You got one? He had one from like a VCR or whatever, because we end up having, how many HDMI cables do I have at this point, let alone IEC cables? I'm sure most of you are the same way. I've got a whole collection of various USB cables. Side note, I love the Dixie Chicks. I only boycott the people who boycott them. Anyway, back to the topic. So he tried a different IEC cable, and problem gone. Problem solved. His Friedman is sounding perfect. At some point, there was just a break in the ground wire inside the IEC cable, and that's no reflection on Friedman. If I would do the same thing. You buy a box of 1,000 8-foot, or probably 3-4 meter IEC cables. You test each one, works, you ship it out with the amp, and then one of them fails. So it's nice when the inexpensive, unusual problem is the cause. So he was happy, and the postal service did not get to charge anyone $60 to ship an amp back to California. I, there you go. That's the sound of one hand not clapping. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine they were great steaks, but still, yeah, the price of beef is just insane. Um, you know, yeah, $8 for baby backs. It's tempting to buy a Costco membership because that's the only way to get good price on beef these days. But I don't. There are two of us. We don't need to go buy 8 ribeyes or 3 pounds of something. So we've been doing more of a French approach. We buy a day or two's worth of groceries. That's it. What is the best amp for a drum machine? I'm using a Boomerang 3 phrase sampler to send my guitar signal to a deluxe reverb and the drum machine to a JC40. Thanks. Whatever you like the sound of, man. Um, the drum machine is not going to give you, no amplifier is going to give you an accurate sound for the drum machine. So if you're trying to make the drum machine louder for live performance, a PA is better than amplifier. But if you're trying to add character and dirt for a recording, run it through a Champ, run it through a Gorilla, run it through the cheapest amp you can possibly find at a pawn shop, and get like a Radio Shack PZM boundary mic and tape it to a wall 12 feet away and see what it sounds like when you play it back with compression. That's the nice thing about doing stuff like this. You can have a lot of fun without spending much money. Creativity goes a lot more than dollars when it comes to funkifying your life like that. But if you're trying to use the drum machine live and hear it on stage, you'd be better off buying at least a keyboard amp, if not some kind of powered monitor. Hey, thank you. Is it Win and Van Reenen, or I can't tell if that's two names put together, but thank you very much. Weinen Van Reenen? Sorry, the Boer pronunciations are beyond my capability, though I do try. Thank you very much. Why are some effects loop in series and others in parallel? Thanks. Well, Jorge, parallel effects loops are primarily done by marketing departments because they think that they're going to sound fancy and people will want to have them. There's almost no reason to ever have a parallel effects loop in an amplifier because you don't have any control over the mix. Better to have a good low impedance series effect. And then if you need to do parallel stuff, you run the series loop out to a mixer, and then you have faders or little trim pods. It can be as simple as a little Rane one rack space unit. You can do all the parallel stuff where it counts, as opposed to trying to do it on the back of your Mesa, where it's like, do I want it to go or on that lovely note, we're going to take our first 7-minute intermission. We're starting this one a little bit late, but better late than never. See you guys in 7 minutes. All right, minor YouTube update. Just one second. Not YouTube update, YouTube rant. Two things. First of all, about 4 months ago, YouTube magically changed the default view for me from newest for comments from newest to most relevant. And every time I've got to change it back to newest. And when I upload a video, I have a choice whether it's going to show me the comments newest or most relevant. And it always defaults to most relevant. I change it to newest. It has no impact. I still get most relevant, which relevant to whom? Never to me. So I have to do that every day. It just makes it really hard to reply to people. Second of all, there's a new wave of spam that I've been getting, and maybe you've gotten it too, Brad, and other people will watch out for this. It says, "Hey, I'd like to resolve this the easy way. I noticed that you use one of my tracks that's copyrighted without permission, and let's resolve this." And there's never any instance of what the track is, what the name of the track is, or what video. I don't actually use anyone's backing music in my videos, except for backing music that I have recorded here and other videos or things that I generate myself. And I actually hate all the backing tracks you hear on most channels. Especially there's this trend where everything's got these little squeaky Minnie Mouse voices. Everything's pitched up high, and there are channels that have good content that I can't watch their videos because the music is so awful. It's aggressively bad. But anyway, there's a spam scam going out about, "Hey, I think you've using my content," but there's never any click here to pay me or anything. So it's an odd scam. I don't see what their angle is, but they need to research the people that they are scamming, because I don't actually use any of that. Hey, Scott, I don't use the AMP1 Blue amp. I have no experience with them. I don't know anything about that. Sorry. And Windenvan? Is it Windenvan? Yeah, I saw your subsequent comment. I meant to say Afrikaans, not Boer, earlier. I just went to like history, South Africa, Boer War. Sorry. Yeah, I hate if I mispronounce or am unable to pronounce someone's name on here. I don't want to be that guy. Sometimes it's a combination of foreign languages. Sometimes it's foreign languages, though I do try, and sometimes it's just lack of punctuation. So if you squint just right, their username makes sense, but otherwise. Knowing I'm not a fan of the Mesa build quality, do I know why the Mesa Mini Rec 25 sounds so compressed? I have no experience with that model. I'm sure they did something deeply stupid that no one who designs amps would ever have done, but that's kind of the history of Mesa in a nutshell. That's all I can tell you, though. And I will never know because unless one wants to pay me an inordinate amount of money, I will never take a Mini Rec in on the bench. I've been trying to find out more about the sounds of different Bassman amps and the cabs, but I still can't choose which one I let some builder make a clone of. What do I prefer? Hey, working player. Well, I really like the F6A, and I really, really like that 6G6B, the tuxedo from the other day. And I like the AB165. AB165 once you change the output section back to the AA864. As far as cabs go, only of the Bassman cabs, the only one I like is, for its own sake, is the 58 through 60 with a 4x10. As far as the other Bassman cabs, the closed back cabs with a panel down the middle and historically fiberglass insulation inside, I think they always sound a little bit better if you make them if you port them, if you make them mostly open back. Well, it's closed back, but with like a 3 or 4 inch gap between rear panels. I think they breathe a lot better. I've done that to some, and I did do I got a Mojotone 65 piggyback Bassman cab for Merrill to go with his. I think he has a 66 Bassman, and we put What speakers do we put in there? I think we did the Veteran 30 ET65 combo like I have in here, and that sounded really good, but because it was a very large closeback 2x12, it had a lot of low end, which would not be my daily driver preference. Well, working player, one of the things you need to remember about Bassman is that the same model name was used for an array of vastly different sounding amplifiers. The Bassman 50 and 100 from the 70s don't sound anything like the 63 and or 65 and later Bassman, 65 through 69 Bassman. And they don't sound anything like the various models between 61 and 64. And they don't sound anything like the previous Tweed ones. They all say Bassman, but they do very different things. So I don't think you need to get hung up on which Bassman you want. I think you need to think, what gives me a sound that I cannot otherwise get? Like if you have a deluxe reverb, you can get very similar sounds to that as what you get from like an AB165, though there's more gain available with AB165. There's a certain amount of overlap between like a deluxe reverb or super reverb and the Tuxedo version. The bass channel in the Tuxedo has that really cool drive option, which is, you know, ideal for all kinds of stuff. You know, I think it's most commonly associated these days with Brian Setzer, but man, when I was fucking around with it, I got a lot of stuff that was just one Les Paul and a pair of pumps away from being Mick Ronson approved. I really like that. But the 58, 59 at 5F6A doesn't sound anything like the Fender reverb amps. So there's almost no overlap there. I'll check out Frenzel at some point. Sorry, we crossed streams last week, Dave. Hey, Marcus. Sorry that you're having issues with your PV Windsor. I don't know what the issue is. It's beyond him. And the trouble is, with the PV Windsor, there's only so much service you can justify on that. I'm not a huge fan of the Orange Crush, but that's purely subjective. I have no fault. I don't have any known faults with the amp. I just don't like the sound very much. I don't know what sounds you're trying to get and what your price range is. If you want to pop in here, hey, these are the guitars I use. These are the styles of music I like to cover. This is how loud I need to be for the gigs I want to play or that I play. You know, and this is my price range. Then I and the collective chat can give you some good pointers. It may be the Orange Super Crush. It may not. I don't know, but I can't tell you. I can tell you there are a lot of better built amps than the PV Windsor, and I hate to say that, but it's just the truth. Thank you, Andy. Appreciate you. Get my vibe in shape in JMI AC30. Replace most components to get the vibrato working, but have had bad distortion regardless of depth position. Trem mode is fine. Rolled tubes confirmed all values. Ideas. Well, the trem is fine, but the vibe is going weird. The vibe is going to be using 2 stages as opposed to just 1 stage. It's really a complicated circuit. Replace most components. Bad distortion. Well, the first thing to look at is the way they get the phase to be different. So it's vibrato as opposed to just tremolo. Is they have various capacitors on each half of that circuit that change the phase by X degrees. And if any of those caps are leaking DC, you will have noise. So it's like, 750 picofarad, 500 picofarad, the whole string of small picofarad value caps. Those are the things I look at first of all. I'm going to assume that you have a good filter cap for that stage. And the other thing is possibly, though not very likely, you could have a bad switch on the Vibe Trem, because that's how that switch works. It shunts one side to ground or not. If that switch is defective or the ground connection it's going to is not good, I would have to have the amp in front of me, but it'd probably be pretty simple. I don't know whether you can confirm with a scope where in the circuit you have distortion. But if think about the circuit being this way, you have the input signal coming in, and it gets split off into two different directions, and each direction has a different phase relationship to the other because different values of caps with different resistors to ground. They just shift it, and then they go through and to each side of a tube, which either blends both of them together or just takes the output from one because the vibrato trim switch turns one half off, and that gets blended in. The other thing is, well, if you have, if the trim mode is fine, it's not going to be the cap or resistor after that. So I feel bad because you gave me $10 and I only have vague advice. I'd have to have a lot more information than that. But those are things to look at. You could have, if you haven't replaced all the resistors or all the little capacitors, it could be any one of those. It could be multiples of those. Hey, Frank, glad you can make it here. I know Saturdays with kids are tough. What's the best mod, in my opinion, for Fender Blues Junior? Selling it while it works and buying an amp that's going to work a long time. Blues Junior's a horrible amp. It's total scam that Fender pulls off on their customers. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. It's not a good amp. It's not built to be a good amp. It's not built to be reliable. It's got so many flaws. It can be made better, or hell, get a used PV Classic 20. Have something good. In comparison, the Classic 20 is a Dumble. Is it possible to run the reverb of a twin reverb amp into the normal channel while the guitar is plugged in? Yeah, it's totally possible. You basically would just have a tone stack on your and more control over the gain. But yeah, try it. You'll either like it or you won't. Hey, S boy, I see your question, but it's gonna be a while before I get to it because if I see you got the little questions pointing at it, that will make it stand out of the chat. I just want everyone to know that it takes me a while to get to everyone's questions. Sonic difference between the ET65 and G12C and a deluxe reverb circuit. G12C's got a little more scoop and a little more high-end emphasis. ET65 is a little more balanced across the entire frequency response. The way I explain it to a lot of players is if your ideal clean sound has been Lenny, or your ideal clean sound has been like the Eric Johnson thing, you want the G12C. If your ideal clean sound is more along the lines of Robin Ford or Steely Dan, then you probably like the ET65. That does not mean you cannot play Lenny or an Eric Johnson kind of thing on the ET65. You can. It's just not going to be as instantly there. And you cannot, it doesn't mean you can't play smooth blues on a G12C. You can. It's just not its strongest suit. They're great. Thank you very much for that. They're very good sounding speakers, either one of which can be an ideal choice for someone. They would not be a bad choice for anyone, but one of them will be more ideal for you. And the best way for you to determine that is to try them. And it's the trouble with, you can't go to the local guitar store and go to the room with 15 different speakers all set up and you plug your guitar in and push button 14, then push button 2, 14, 2, 14, 2. Let's try 7. I wish that were set up for people. I do that kind of stuff here on a limited basis. But again, and I can tell you the results I get, they're subjective. I can record them, but even when the video I put up in the next couple of days, where you get to hear these 4 speakers back and forth, you get fatigue. You forget what you've heard. We have very short aural memory. I will try to address that in the video, but it's hard to know until you've actually played full songs on one. Yeah, passive loop won't do any good on that amp, Erika. Um, and pre-phase inverters kind of suck on that too. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you only need to do 6 to 8 dB, yeah, find the value resistor that will give you that, or put a little pot in that'll do it. And then just set it so that you switch that pot or that resistor in and out, and just put like a 10 mega across that switch so you don't get any pop, and you'll be fine. Especially for live use. Nope. 6505s are slightly better built in some ways than the. Well, I'm talking. I don't know about new 6505. I imagine those are junk because PV's a ghost of its former self. Back in the day, the 6505s were slightly better than the 5150s, but only slightly. Any of the old PV 6505s and 5150s are infinitely better than the EVH branded ones. But I don't have any knowledge of what PV is doing this week because PV is not operating out of Meridian, Mississippi anymore. So I think it's just brand equity at this point. Hey, John. All right, I'll check out. I'll check that out. I heard that single they had out like 5 years ago or so, and I didn't care for it. The Dog Days Are Over, whatever. I didn't care for it at all. There are a lot of bands I'll read about and think that sounds great. I'll check them out, and I'm like, oh, okay, not for me. Something City Drive or Bay Drive. I can't remember the name of that band. They do the soundtrack for Somebody Feed Phil. And on paper, from reading the music critics describe that band, I was going to love him, and I just did not at all. But hey, it's great if you love it. That music is purely subjective. Hey, Daniel Lang from Cleveland. Hello, Cleveland. Hey, Andy. GL, or is that QL9, etc. Just passing through at work at the moment. Well, thank you for passing through. Arnaud can get a used Eminence Red Fang for a good price. If I had any experience, yeah, they're good speakers. I don't know why Eminence suddenly stopped putting them out, but they were really good. It would be a good match for an AC15C1. I'm not a I don't have a problem with the greenback in the AC15 either, but I do think the blue is a better choice than the greenback if you can swing it. I'll tell you that the Eminence Red Fang is a good choice, and the black and blue from Warehouse is a good choice. Though I don't think they make a 10. Um, if you have a Red Fang 10-inch and a cab to use with an AC15 head, be great. I would not transmogrify an AC15 cabinet to go from a 12 to a 10 for it, though. Hey, in Keene, late 60s Gibson Minuteman GA20 RVT and Lancer GA35 RVT combos amps. Thoughts? I don't like late 60s Gibsons. They were going after the Trini Lopez sound. You can take out all the T filters and they sound a lot better. But to me, the Gibsons to get are the late 50s and very early 60s before they started making everything clean and hyper sterile sounding. The Les Paul amps, the GA40, fantastic. The GA18Ts, the GA20s, the early ones, like up to 62. Those are basically Fender Tweeds that say Gibson, though they have some build quality issues. Um, yeah, I remember when that came out. It made me take them a lot more seriously, but man, I miss the days when W was the biggest embarrassment on the international scene, and B, well, I'll go do A, B, and C. B, fuck anyone who boycotted them over that, um, and C, on the album I mentioned earlier, "Taking the Long Way Home." There's a song on there called "Silent House" that they co-wrote with Neil Finn, and it is one of the best songs I've ever heard in my life. It is short storytelling on the level of Flannery O'Connor or Dylan Thomas, and it is hauntingly beautiful, and it really moves me a lot. And Neil covered it on his Crowded House album about death, Time on Earth. He has his version on Time on Earth, and then the Chicks have their version on Taking the Long Way, and each version is phenomenal. Each album is phenomenal. They're both albums for grown ass people about grown ass problems, and have been lighthouses to me for the past 15 plus years. Yeah, Neil Finn is just an amazing songwriter in general, but when writing for with them and for Natalie Maine's voice and the strengths that she has and the things she can do that he cannot do himself, so he surpassed himself on Silent House. Sorry about dancing about architecture again. Let's see. Any good books, resources for learning how to design solid state bass amps? Brad here, Brad's Guitar Garage might have some good advice for you here. He's more in the solid state world than I am. Yeah, man, I thought maybe we'd have matching. You got the titanium, I got the stainless, but yeah, some khaki autos. And of course, mine's the better looking 38, and this is what is this? Watch Gecko, English brand. I love the way this leather has worn in. Thank you, man. Yeah, solid state power amp designs are designed to be hi-fi, but some of that is good for bass amps. But Brad probably have a book or recommendation for you. I'm popping this up here, though I've subsequently removed this guy from the channel because it's something I want to mention. That's my old address. I have not lived there since 2007. Um, but how fucking creepy that he would post that. You don't you don't do that. I, this is not the thing that made me remove him from the stream. But docs doxing people never ends well. Um, if you are a client, if you contact me with email and I agree to take your app, you get my address, you get my phone number. I I put you in my phone book. You're listed as a client. You call me, you text me, I see it. You know where I am. You know where your amp is. Um, I don't give out my address unless have been vetted as a client because I don't want someone to know that there's a 54 Deluxe here right now, et cetera, et cetera. People don't need to know where that is. Uh, I mean, god damn. There's social skills, and then there's whatever the opposite of a social skill is that guy has. Ah, man. Hey, Mint Fresh Mike. I have varying opinions on Bad Cat amps. I've heard that they've gotten a lot better very recently. I cannot confirm that, but I've heard that. In the past, they've had a lot of bad ideas inherited from Matchless. Things like putting a glass rectifier tube inside a metal capacitor can clamp. Um, the cathode bias amps traditionally have been biased way too hot, and tubes don't last, and the heat does the same thing it does on Matchless, where it'll just like your plastic rear and front faceplates melt off and crack. But not all of them, and some of them sound fantastic. When they're working, they're great. When they need service, they have a little artificially expensive service bill because they don't do things to mil spec. They wind they wrap the leads multiple times, which makes it difficult to service. I think that they are not as wonderful as the market has made them appear, but they're not bad. And I've heard that they've got a better engineer recently. Uh, Anyway, so I would not seek them out, but I would not avoid them. If you get a good deal on one, they can be fantastic. I've had matchless which sound fantastic. I've had bad cats which sound fantastic. They sound even better when they're biased at 14 watts as opposed to 19 watts on on a 12-watt tube. There is such a thing as physics, and it's physics is not objective. I mean, it's subjective. It's not like just someone's opinion. It works or it doesn't, and there are reasons for it. Do I have the opinion on the best drive pedal for use in the deluxe reverb to approximate a plexi-ish sound? I find most pedals advertised as such sound more high gain to my ear. Man, that's really tough. It's really tough to say. Well, if he got my right address, I would have just removed it. But, but yeah, it's crazy. Is the overdrive pedals are such a subjective recommendation? I would say maybe look into what the Barber pedals that Barber and Keith over at 5 Watt World are putting out. I've heard Jeff McErlane use one of the those pedals into just a Princeton reverb and was getting Zeppelin and early ZZ Top all day long. Of course, that was Jeff McErlane. Um, yeah, try the 5 watt pedal that Keith and David Barber have out. That'd be a good choice among many. Or just go to a store that has a whole bunch of stuff and try, say, hey, can I give you $100 deposit? I'm gonna take these 5 pedals home and bring back the 4 that don't work, whatever. If you have a relationship with a local store, odds are you can say, hey man, can I come in here on a Monday, take these 7 pedals home and bring them back to you Tuesday morning? If you've bought from them in the past, they'll be like, yeah, sure, man, that's cool. A good local store that you have a relationship with. That's the best way to do it. Otherwise, you just put 10 pedals on your credit card at Sweetwater and return 9 of them. That's the other way we do things these days, or Amazon. But I prefer to work with a local store whenever possible, or with a builder like Barber. Yeah, that could be the case as well. People are always trying to use crazy, heavy duty, high current power cables on everything, but then they'll skimp out on something that actually could use the current. I mean, if you got a Princeton reverb, you could use something with 22 gauge wire from between the amp and the wall, be fine. Do that with an SVT, you'll have a smoking black snake, which sounds like a different kind of stream. Anyway, yeah, absolutely. What brands are currently making the best tubes? Right now, it's a little bit hard to say because a lot of brands have had their production really stymied between COVID and the boycotts of Russia, and then everything that's been happening with tariffs. But in general, JJ and of the various new sensor brands, Electro-Harmonix seems to be doing pretty well these days. Hey, Jay Rosales. I have not had an iconic on the bench. My buddy here, Brad, has, and he says that they are built even worse than the the regular EVH 5150s. And I have had those, and those are horrible. So I can only imagine that the Iconic 80 is terrible, but I've not tried it for myself. Is it all right to switch from full power to quarter power without turning it off? I would not do that, especially on an amp where the build quality is sus. In general, when you're switching power, it's best to do it when the amp is off. Um, and Frank here says the Iconic series has awful DC heater issues that require full gutting. It's a very expensive repair on what was marketed as a less expensive amp. So I would honestly, take this very seriously. Brad's a really good tech. Frank's a really good tech. He says they both say that they're terrible and worse than the 5150. I'm a pretty good tech. I've had the EVH 150. It was garbage. While the amp is working and salable, let it become someone else's problem. Sell it and get something that's not awful, because it's awful. And I hate to be the bearer of that news, but that's just the reality sometimes. I have only worked on one or two valve state amps, each of which had a simple fix. It was like a broken solder joint on each one, and the amp came right back up. So I don't see any reason why they can't go on for a very long time. I was not thrilled with the sound, but I would rather have like one of those than an iconic series, because I would know that, hey, every time I turned on the valve state, it would work. And okay, I'd just be like, I'm gonna do like Def Leppard sounds. I'm not gonna try to sound like Van Halen 2. I'm gonna do Def Leppard sounds. That's what this amp does. It's like a Junior Randall, and that's cool. That's what that does, and it's gonna do it for a long ass time. Hey Daria, a stock 65 Deluxe Reverb reissue feels considerably louder than my Pro Reverb reissue, but even though it's lower in wattage. What makes the Deluxe feel louder? Well, it should be about 3 dB louder. The Pro Reverb reissue should be 3 dB louder because you've got about 45 watts versus 22 watts. But I don't know what speakers in the Pro Reverb reissue versus the Deluxe Reverb reissue. If you've got a more efficient speaker in the Deluxe Reverb, that could make up that 3 dB difference. It could just be the interaction of that speaker's resonance frequencies with the room that it's in. It's really hard to say which amp is louder, because the things that tell our ears that something is louder can be distortion. So you can have an amp which sounds clean to us, but it's actually distorted, and we hear that as louder, even though the louder clean amp is right next to it, because it is not giving us our ears any loudness cues. And that's one of the reasons we use scopes. Like on that AC50, I was concerned it wasn't sounding loud enough because it's got an AU7 in V1, and I had to turn the preamp way up. And I was like, am I missing something? Is this thing putting out 50 watts? And with the scope, I confirmed that it was putting out a clean 42 watts, which I think is within the normal range for that design after I did a bit more math. And if I were to give it a 12AX7, it would sound louder, not just because it reached equivalent actual measurable level earlier on the volume knob o'clock, but because it would sound louder, because it would start to have the artifacts we associate with that's loud. So. Hey, S-Boy, yeah, I've worked on a few Music Man amps. I'm sure the videos are out there. They're heavy. They're kind of dated, but there's no reason you can't fix them. Don't think that they have any chips that are obsolete these days. Some of the PVs from the same era, like the PV Deuce, sometimes there are things in those that are hard to replace, like hard to find replacements for, like in the phase circuit. But while I'm not a fan of Music Man's, it's just an aesthetic thing. I would not dissuade someone from playing one if they liked the sound and had someone to carry it for them, because they are very heavy. All right, now we can talk. You like the sound from PV Windsor. Max budget is $1,500. Play really fast power chords and thrash punk band. Gibson SG 598T. All right. What is the wattage of a PV Windsor? Let's see. So I have a sense of your volume. All right, 100 watt. All right, so it's loud. $1,500, really loud. I like the sound for it. Fast power chords. All right, now we check one other thing here. Um, all right, let's see here. I'm doing something for you. Um, I'm going to put a link in the comments here for you. This is not my favorite style for this amp, but this is right at your budget. It is much better than anything Marshall has made since 1990. It is much better than anything PV has made since a little bit earlier than that. And odds are you're going to really like that. The YBA trainer suggestion that Red Cross has is also a good one. I don't know what the price ranges are for the trainers these days. I imagine you probably get a trainer YBA for $700 to $1,200 based on when I last looked at those things. But those are usually 50 watt. But if you just want what that Windsor was emulating, the Seriatone 2203 I linked is $1,495 brand new. That's a really good sounding amp. It's going to do what you want. Fast power chords and thrash punk band with an SG with a 498Ts, those into any good variation on the 2203, and that is a good variation on the 2203, you'll be in tonal nirvana, especially for those genres. And if something goes wrong with it, it's pretty easy to fix. If you can find an old JCM 800 for $1,500 that works, that's great. But in general, that $1,500 is right at the cutoff. If his budget was $2,000, yes. If his budget was $2,500, many more options. But if you can find, I don't recommend buying used guitars used amps at Guitar Center because they never know what they have and they never disclose problems. They do have a good return policy, but of the new things on the market, that's what I would recommend. But if you can find something somewhere used, you'll be in good shape. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate that. Speaking of such things and shows, and given your username and conversations we've had in the past, have you seen Rick Beato's channel this week? It's just been a Rush smorgasbord. We got Getty, got Alex, got Terry Brown. I mean, what else can we ask for? It's funny you say that, Martin. My wife loathes Dire Straits. She says that, and then I point out to her that, hey, one of your favorite songs is Romeo and Juliet, as done by Indigo Girls. Well, that's a Mark Knopfler song. One of our favorite movies of all time is The Princess Bride. That soundtrack is all Mark Knopfler. So he's done some of her favorite music of all time. She just cannot take his voice. And I can understand that. He's got the Dylan thing, but he's a beautiful writer, beautiful player, and I like his voice. But it is funny that I had to. She was like, "I don't like Dire Straits." I'm like, no, you love Dire Straits. You just don't know it, or at least you love Mark Knopfler. He seems like a cool guy. Hey, Kyle Ray, looking for advice on a multimeter to buy, also what to look for in leads. I bought really high-end leads, silicone and all that, and I use cheap meters, and the meters I use are linked in the description, listed in the description. of my regular videos. I don't know. I don't know what uh, leads I have, other than they were really on the expensive side, but I needed them. I've got 3 sets of expensive leads with my $20 to $25 meters, because I need accurate leads that aren't going to give me problems or get tangled up. Brad's the guy to ask about this stuff. Brad remembers model numbers and brands and all this. Maybe he'll chip in on that. But yeah, the I use pretty cheap meters because I don't need advanced features out of a meter. The only thing I wish that I don't have, and one of the meters could do it if I bought a different probe, was a temperature sensor. I could buy a probe that with my one of my meters will read temperatures, that's the only thing I don't have. But anyway, we're going to take the second intermission. Went to the first one a little bit late. We're going to go to the second one a little bit earlier, and it'll all even out in the mix. So you see you guys back in 7 minutes. Coming back a little early because I like you guys. I want to say, Frank, I was watching the whole chemical spill thing. I'm glad that you and yours came through all that fine and that no one was as seriously affected as we thought was possible. I did not reach out because I figured you probably had enough on your plate if you were having to evacuate. But you're in my thoughts, not my prayers because I don't pray, but I was thinking of you, which is more than most thoughts and prayers are worth. And we don't need any more chemical spills. You've got enough goons and mutants as it is, I think. But if any of my goons and mutants don't know about Frank's channel, check him out, Forgotten Gear Restorations. Excellent, excellent content. He's very, very funny. I say that grudgingly. And he also knows his shit. It's a nice combination of stuff. Hey, Greg Brown. If I can't get a Philips new old stock 5Y3 rectifier for a 5E3, if you have to settle, get the JJ. The JJ is an actual 5Y3. The Sovtech is just a small GZ34 and will not give you the correct voltage drop. I'm married the looks, and that's the only sense in which I've got them, but thank you. I do have the cameras, but that only gets you so far. And I'm actually very thin. This camera, the only downside is it adds 100 pounds. Womp womp. Oh, just the slush ball. 3 years ago, I recommended the DSL 40C and CR series for those on a budget who wanted a really versatile amp, especially those who are doing like top 40 or church gigs or whatever, who need to cover a wide range of sounds. In that 3 years, and very recently, I've become aware that the glue used in that series on the board has begun to become conductive and corrosive, and so you get stray voltage leaking from this capacitor to this resistor. Resistor leads get tarnished, and eventually would be corroded to the point where things would break. And it's a scam in that Marshall should never have used that glue because the qualities of that glue would be known. There are labs that test, hey, this is what happens to this thing over time with heat. Don't use for this. They don't care. They don't care. And so I may do a follow-up to that video. All right, 3 years later, which of these amps are still worth anything? And I have to do a big caveat on that. And the actual winner of that contest, the Vox AC15C, is still going strong. They did have a bad batch of filter caps, but that's few and far between, and not the same thing as the amp eating itself alive if one of those were to go out. Sadly, I think the days of those being under $500 are gone with the days of eggs and hamburger being affordable. Hey man, thank you. That really means a lot to me. It sounds blasé. Hey, thanks, man. Thanks for that. I mean it. I appreciate it. And at the end of each video, almost every video for the past several years, I put thanks for watching, and it sounds perfunctory at this point. I need to change it up, but I don't know how else to say it. I really appreciate everyone who watches the videos, especially those who watch to the end to hear the thanks. I'm supposed to thank you for watching. Reintroduce me in the video every time, and hey, don't forget to click like and subscribe and ring the bell and get notified, blah blah blah, and sound like one of those damn Watch Mojo videos that irritate the hell out of me. I don't do that. I have the little please like and subscribe thing that scrolls usually at 30 seconds, sometimes at a minute. At the end, I say thanks for watching. I figure most of you know how YouTube works at this point. I don't need to beat you over the head with it, but I'm supposed to. In terms of marketing, I'm not doing everything I can to monetize my assets. Here we go. Designing Audio Power Amplifiers, a book by Bob Cordell, is a fantastic book. So. Punch magnet. Watch posing. I don't ever do watch posing. I don't know what you mean, watch posing. Wait, there you go. That's the watch pose. I've got I don't have a G Force, but I've got several G Shocks. Ooh, yeah. Yeah. Send him to Blackie. Watch him draw back a stump. Oh, I have persuaded him, forsooth. Oh, I hope you enjoy it. I've not heard of Charlie Crockett, though I saw you mention him before, and I will look into him, but I'm unfamiliar with him as of the time of this viewing, as of now. Is there a Marshall Super Lead 2203 high gain mod, which I believe is too much? Yeah. I don't think the various things where people drill holes and add another 12x7 are necessary. I think they might have been necessary in 1984. But if you want to do the SIR thing, SIR 39 thing, whatever, you can buy amps that from the get go that have that done now, and we can leave the old Marshalls to be old Marshalls. I don't think they need a lot more than making, giving the option of give what I like to do on a 2203, 2204 is turn the clean channel into something which has the gain range of a non-cascaded plexi. When you plug into the low gain, it has the cleans, but it also has the crunch and levels that you get from, say, a stock lead or super lead. But then you go into the high gain, and then it's stock JCM 800, though I'll give it a little more gain than that with changing the second stage cathode from 10K to like 4.7, maybe as low as 2.7 if things are stable. And to help with that, I'll make sure I've got shielded grid connections and do some tasteful 10 picofarad, 100 picofarad snubber caps, say from plate to cathode here and there, just to keep it very, very stable. But I don't think it, well, the BE100 that Friedman does is kind of like the ultra mega super lead mods you might have found in the late 80s without the amp being carved up, without things being just a little cascaded pile of tack soldered nonsense. He actually designed it to have that level of gain um, 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 without anything being an afterthought. And he has a layout designed to promote good signal to noise ratio, which is one of the other things that's really hard to do when you start carving them up. Hey, Spruce Creek Traders. Yeah, the vintage, as in 60s AC15s, are entirely a different circuit than anything Vox made since. The current AC15 is not at all the JMI AC15. The current versions of the AC15 are just smaller 15-watt versions of the current AC30. The old AC15s are fire breathers, much more in common with the 5E3 Deluxe than with an AC30. I love the sound, the Pinto, the EF86 channel, and I like the vibrato channel as well. But the trouble is the Pinto tubes are very unreliable, very prone to becoming noisy and microphonic, and it's hard for a large company to put them out in any quality these days. Is my gripe with the Tone Masters to do with the tone, or do I think the concerns are only about the reliability and long-term value? I find that sound a bit too bright. It's not my birthday. It was another person's birthday. I was wishing them a happy birthday. Mine was back in February. My gripe about the Tone Masters is threefold. Of a digital modeling app, it is a lot to pay for a one-trick pony that does not have any of the features that would make most people using digital modeling apps happy. It doesn't have an effects loop. It doesn't have multiple models. It's just the one amp that's modeled, and you pay a lot for that privilege. The failure rates that they've been having, the failures that I've observed are easily preventable failures that they did not easily prevent because they used very cheap capacitors barely rated for the voltage present. They used some tantalums where they should not have, but they did to save space. So, people tell me I'm an idiot because I said they're not going to last. They're not likely to last. People are like, well, mine's been going fine for 3 years. I'm like, well, that's great. These others are going fine for 30 years. So the failures I've already observed in them are failures of design and intent. When I play one, it sounds good if I play very softly without any aggression. If I play it hard, it's like it's got a built-in compressor, and not a good compressor. It's like a cheap pedal set wrong, and it just clamps down. So right when the amp should be getting bigger, it gets smaller, and I find it annoying. Now, if I were in a worship band and I was just playing clean stuff all day long at a low volume, I think it was just the tits. But if you try to dig in and do what a deluxe reverb can do, a real deluxe reverb can do, it can't do that thing. On the flip side, the digital reverb that they modeled is probably the best sounding digital model of a spring reverb I've ever heard. I really like the sound of the reverb in that. As far as the speakers go, I have tried the Tone Master I tried had the Neo 12K, which sounded like a C12K, which is possibly the worst sounding speaker that could ever be paired with a deluxe reverb. So they authentically nailed the sound of the full C12K with the Neo 12K. I have tried, but not in the Tone Master, the Neo Creamback, but is also an option in the Tone Masters, and that is a very good sounding speaker, but it is a bit bright. They're using them because they're lightweight, and the entire premise of the amp is the whole thing weighs very little. If that's the only thing that bothers you, you could trade it for a different. You could take out the Neo speaker, put in a traditional speaker, and lose that bit too bright. That is the speaker itself, though. I don't. If they were more reliable, I'd have fewer issues with them. If they were more flexible in terms of their use, they would make more sense to me. For the price you pay for one, given that it's all software, it should have a mids control. You should be able to say, all right, I want to go to the Super Reverb tone stack. All right, I want to give me a choice of opto trim, harmonic trim, and bias trim. They don't do that because it's a digital amp for those who don't want a digital amp at the price that competes with some serious stuff that's elsewhere on the market for those who are more serious about modeling. And it seems to me that they're missing a lot of easy tricks. If I had a Tone Master Deluxe Reverb that was actually capable of doing 50 watts, people are like, oh, it's 100 watt. No, it's not. It's limited. They would not ship that thing with a 65 watt speaker if it were putting out 100 watts. They have a ICE module which is capable of 100 watts, which maxes out at 100 watts. But the circuit is limited. It doesn't get that loud. But if they had one that had capable of being actually 50 watts with a 65 watt to 75 watt speaker, if they gave me a choice of different classic Fender tone stacks, a mid-range control, maybe an option to give a built-in boost that sounded good, option to have model with and without the bright cap, which they don't have. You got to change the firmware to get that, and the option to say bias trim, opto trim, and harmonic trim. And hey, while we're playing digital, well, can we expand the modeling of the digital spring reverb? Can we do like a dwell function, make it compete with the standalone reverb units? That would be a really good sounding amp. That'd be a very versatile amp that would make sense to me, but they're giving very little things for At the time, in my mind that I tried them, they were $900. I'm sure they're much more than that now. So, but other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play? Hey, Ron Marcy. I use I think it's ChemQuick #4. I've got this kind of stuff listed in all my videos. I don't know why everyone's told me happy birthday. Maybe it's because they missed my actual birthday, but my birthday is in February. Tech Spray #4 No Clean. Here, I'll hold it up for you. But this is listed. This is listed in my videos. Let me cover my eyes. That's the one to get. There may be some others that are good, but there are others that are certainly bad. Someone was commenting the other day that I'm a whiz with Braid. They never get theirs to work so well. The other brand I got from CE Distribution was horrible. It didn't have enough flux built into it, so it didn't wick. This stuff is fantastic. Of course, it's gone from like $6 a thing to $12, I think, because everything has to cost more these days. I'm raising my rates, but I don't know if I'm keeping up with inflation. I talked to about 4 other techs in the United States, and I was charging less than any of them. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing this wrong. Hey, Paul Hutchkiss. Got a Victoria Club Deluxe. Sounds great, but seems to be eating tubes 2 times now after extended rehearsals. Possibly heat related. Preamp tubes seem fine. Power tubes? It's very possible that it's power tubes. Is the most likely thing that would happen was you'd have either a bad screen grid resistor, a bad tube, which it's possibly had a bad power tube which damaged the screen grid resistor, so the next set of power tubes get sacrificed to the smoke gods, or the Victoria branded orange drops are leaking DC in the output, so you've got tubes which aren't biasing correctly. That's less likely. They tend to use the 630 volt caps, so that's the less likely choice. I would say that you probably should take it to a tech. And given the way that the Victoria is built, it's really easy to open it up and see. And it's, you could just have one 75-cent 3-watt screen grid resistor, which is bad, in which case you change that out. But until that situation is fixed, you're just going to be feeding new power tubes to it. And given that a pair of 6v6 is about $90 today, the average tech would probably charge $90 to $200 to fix it. Yeah. I would take it to a tech. Hey, Kale Scapy, got an old 50s Hoffman amp out of the console, has 284s, EF86, etc. Pretty much the same tube complement as an early Vox AC15. I want to convert to guitar use. Any suggestions? It depends on, I don't know what the space available is, but look up the AC10 circuit and the look up the AC10 circuit and the AC15 circuit. Maybe get one channel out of either one of those in there, but I can't tell you without seeing more information than that. I'm sorry. I whistled. That S whistled. I hate when my S's whistle. Hey, Jeff. What do I recommend today to give the most bang for the buck that is not Fender, Marshall, or Vox and would be a one and done amp? Now, I don't know if there is such a thing. I mean, I guess, are we going to take out the various clone builders out of there? Because, I could say a P2P amp's Uncle Larry, but that's what, that's a good version of what Fender used to make. That's a one and done for some people. It's not a one and done for other people. He also has a Princeton that looks well built. Maybe a Sir Bella. as far as a one and done. That's Fender adjacent. Um, I can't tell you beyond that. Sorry. Looking for the next question. I think I'm during the last. I'm here during the last break, so I got to get to the next question. Yeah, I thought about putting music in the intermissions, and I realized that most people just get irritated with it and have to mute it, and then they'd forget to unmute it when I came back, and they wouldn't know that I came back. So, uh, whenever I go to intermission, you just play whatever music you want, or you just go to the lobby and get yourself a treat. I had a fluke before. I had a fluke before these cheap ones. My fluke one died, and I looked at the price of new comparable flukes, and I didn't see anything that was $200 better about the fluke. Now, if I were out in the if I were a lineman, if I were doing field work and taking this out in heat and cold and dropping it and all that stuff, yeah, absolutely. But sitting on the bench, these $25 ones are working fine. Yeah, I'm gonna go shave off a few pounds, lose a few stones. Meant to do it this morning, and the day got away from me. All right, Brad's looked at the iconic 80-watt half power switch, so it's a voltage doubler on the people. Yeah, okay, so if Brad says you can use it with the amp on, go for it. It sounds sincere that my evil plan is working. It sounds sincere. I cannot speak when doing this. Superior? What the fuck, man? It sounds sincere. I still can't do it. Anyway, see, Frank, I say that 10 minutes after he left. Let's see. Catalan. Cool. Good to see you, Catalan. How does a Vox feel? Kind of rectangular, a little bit pebbly. Play one. It's closer to Marshall than it is to Fender as far as the playing feel. But if you got a 5E3, of the various Fenders, the 5E3's got a lot in common with the feel of a Fender. If you like the 5E3, you'd like a good Vox as well. Well, Wes, yeah, there you go. I think the AC15 is a really, really good amp. It's not as good as a 66 Deluxe Reverb. It's not as good as a 762203. But if you look at what Fender's putting out now as the Deluxe Reverb, if you look at what Marshall's putting out in place of the 2203, and you look at what Vox is putting out now as an AC15, Vox is winning. And the thing is, your that AC15 that you have can be used in the same room with your very nice amps, and no one's going to say, "What are you doing that thing? That sounds terrible. Turn that off. Go back to the other one." Whereas if you were to play a Marshall DSL 100 next to your 762203, if you play a Tone Master next to your 66, the conversation about why these other amps are even here might come up. You know this. And here's the thing. Some players like a lot of different amps, but there's one amp that just speaks to them. So if you have a relationship with your 76 Deluxe, I'm 66 Deluxe, that's the goal. You found your match. Other people's match may be the AC-15 custom over an expensive amp from the 60s. That's also important to learn, which is great. See you, Martin. So you're also February. Depending on where you are in the world, February is a great time to be born. It's a lousy time to have birthdays when you're a kid because we'd have birthday parties and it'd be cold and rainy and we couldn't go outside and things would be closed. And, nothing like the smell of a house with like 10 9-year-old boys running in one room. Yeah. I go to friends' birthday parties in the summer. It'd be a pool party. Everyone's going to the zoo. Everyone's doing this. My party, it's raining. It's 20 degrees. Thank you for coming. I'm sorry that your mom died when her car rolled over on the ice patch on the way here. But, thanks for coming. Sorry your mom died, man. Yeah. Yeah. You can see why I don't play in a worship band. One of the many reasons, but yeah. $1,400, man. Someone's getting what you're paying for. Yeah, I mean, you know it or you don't. Um, Man, I have so many. I've had so many clients that come over and test an app, and I'll hand them a guitar. I don't have a Strat or a Les Paul handy with the numbers, but I'll hand them the guitar, and they'll turn the guitar up to 3, and they'll start to play, and they're playing really softly, and they're using little bitty picks. And I'm like, has has no one ever shown you? And I'm not here to give guitar lessons or anything, but it's just like, all right, that you're not even hearing what your amp does when you do that. It's fine to have rolling the volume off and playing lightly within your arsenal. Those are valuable tools to have as a player. But if your default is, oh, it's too loud, I'm just barely making any sound out here. Now turn the amp down, turn your guitar up, get your signal noise ratio optimal. And playing softly is great, but it should not be your only playing card. So if you're a genteel strummer, you may love the Tone Master. You'll never realize the things it doesn't do or doesn't let you do. Fuck off, man. I lost a tooth during COVID. I can't afford to get a bridge made. You know, all the years that I wasn't showing my face on YouTube, I had all my teeth. Everything was great. We go into COVID. I'm not telling you really to fuck off. It's fine to make fun of me. I make fun of me too. Anyway, COVID starts and my tooth cracks, and I can't get to a dentist, and I can't get to a dentist, and I can't get to a dentist. By the time I finally get a dentist to see me, it was all infected, and they had to pull the thing, and the dentist uh, yanked, damaged the bone up in here, so that I've got missing bone all the way up in here, and they tried to do a graft from back here on my jaw. Let me tell you, that felt great. And the graft didn't take, and the little stud fell out. And my next option is a very expensive bridge, and I don't have the money for it. And, it's just vanity. So, yeah, occasionally someone's going to make fun of me. It's all right. My wife is hot, and she likes me anyway. So, there. How many cups of coffee is too many? Well, that's I still don't know. My wife would say 1.5 is too much for her, and nothing after 3 p.m. But I, I typically do 4 to 6 a day, and my cups are a cup and a half each. So basically, I do 2 pots a day, sometimes more. And seriously, Scott from Baltimore, My fuck off was mostly in jest, unless in which case unless you were very serious, in which case I'm suddenly retroactively serious as well. Let's see. Is there any benefit to installing a 1 amp slow fuse on the HT center tap on a deluxe reverb? Also been trying Harbor Freight 6037. I like it so far. Hey, if the Harbor Freight solder works, that's great. I stick with Kester, but I buy a lot more solder than most people. I buy, Brad uses a lot of solder. The solder I use in a month is what most people use in 5 years. So, but also I have to stand behind my work. If you work on your own amp and the Harbor Freight solder develops a problem, oh, okay, I'll just reflow it. Everything I send out of here has got to be ready for a world tour, and I know I can trust the Kester. So it's business expense anyway. There's no real reason to add a 1 amp fuse on the center tap of a deluxe reverb, but you can. Usually, any fault in a deluxe reverb is going to either trip the mains fuse or be a fault in the heater supply, in which case, if you have the heater balance resistors, half-watt heater balance resistors, one of those will act as a fuse. But if you want to do the center tap, you can. I am self-conscious about the tooth thing, so you see me do this a lot. Or if I laugh, I'll suddenly cut my mouth because I don't mean to laugh on here because then you see the damn thing. And it's not even like I look I'm in a punk band or that I'm really tough and threatening. It just looks like I'm missing a fucking tooth. I'm missing a fucking tooth and I need to shave. Yeah, supersonic. No. I don't understand why the supersonic had to be so bad. It could have easily, in an alternate universe, the supersonic was a great amp. But I think it was a great idea that got messed up by management. Oh, well, yeah, Finnish winters, yeah. I don't know if you have, do you have pool parties at any time? But, I mean, pool parties where you're not skating on the damn thing. But, that's an interesting way of putting it. I wouldn't go that far, but I tried to dig in and do an Albert Lee, no, not Albert Lee, Albert King kind of thing, and the amp just went, I can't do that. Um, I've watched Dylan Tone Talks or Dylan Talks Tone or whatever it is. Seems like a knowledgeable guy. I want to send him a hat that's not 4 sizes too large for his head, though. So I'm not making fun of you, Dylan, if you see this, but seriously, your hats are way too big for your head. You're disappearing into those things. They come in different sizes. I've already called myself fat, hairy, ugly, and missing a tooth. So come at me with your tiny little head. Yeah, right, man. It's just crazy. Uh, I never had a tooth go like that, and there it was, right when the dentists were like, not available for forever. Well, I don't have, I don't have, I have my two front teeth. It's one just aside. I can still whistle. The trouble is, I sometimes I whistle without meaning to. I had to slightly relearn how to speak on microphone with this because I was very, very essy for a good long while until I found some lip tricks, which sounds like a very different video. Yeah, man. The infection was not pleasant, and they when they got the tooth out, they damaged the bone. So I have missing bone here. If I didn't have the hair growth here sucked in, I'd look like a little Skeletor here. yeah. Well, that's, we all start somewhere. Exactly. Exactly. Hey, I just want to say I really enjoyed talking to you last Saturday, Brandon. I mean, the week before was fine too, but last Saturday we got past the app and just I got to know each other a little bit, and it was really nice to talk to you, Brandon. Sun Tzu. Thoughts on the Dr. Z Maz 8? I don't know anything about the Maz 8. The 18 and 30 are quite good, or is it 18 and 28? I don't recall, but I've never. I'll have no. I don't have no. I ain't got no experience with no Maz 8. I'm sure it's fine. Never had any WMs or WEMs. So I had a cab come in once. A guy had a high watt with a WEM cab. Guess what he liked to play? But I've never had a WEM amp in. Man, I do love the Australian knack for cutting right to the gist of something. I live in a much more polite society here in the South where there's a little more sideways approach usually, and a lot of heart blessing and his mama trieds. But oh yeah, Albert King, yeah. Hey Clint, bless your heart. I don't think he's got a tiny little head. I think he's got giant fucking hats. Or maybe I'm wrong and he goes home and cries on his wee pillow. Let's see. Yeah, the EH is a Sovtech. It's weird. Their MiG 50 is a clone of the Sovtech MiG 50, which was a clone of a Marshalls. They had the 2204 clone and they had the League clone. So it's Electro Harmonics clone of a Sovtech, which is a clone of a Marshall. Now the circuit was almost exactly the same. The Sovtechs used some former Soviet Russian military surplus parts, so they'd have capacitors that we don't have in the West. They'd have capacitors that fit into holders that we don't have in the West, and they'd have various, like the tube sockets, just be a little bit different. I don't understand why Electroharmonics is reissuing that because it's a clone of a clone. But I've not tried one. They may be fantastic. They may have some secret sauce. I will say that of the EHs that I have, not the EHs, the old Sovtech MIGs that I played, some of them sounded really freaking good. In fact, a local studio uh, during COVID, when I was in between tooth issues, I was redid every amp in there, like 30 amps. It was one of the reasons we kept the house at the time. But one of them was a MIG, and it didn't need much work. And it's that particular amp sounded the balls. So maybe they had a specific transformer that Electro Harmonics had rewound, reverse engineered because it was a Soviet transformer that was different than a Drake or whatever. I don't know. But I've not played one of the Electro Harmonics. Hopefully they're fantastic. I just don't know. I have some Nashville pros. I've got some Memphis pros. I've got some Nashville amateurs. I've got people from all over the country. I've got a nice little, I got pretty much the Mississippi drainage basin at this point, from the Rockies to the Smokies up to Chicago. But I get some stuff from LA from time to time. Though I do recommend people take stuff to Frank and stuff and other techs I know. Uh, as necessary. And my buddy Lane up in Queens, I send people to him all the time. I cannot work on every amp. I don't need to work on every amp. And if I know a guy who's an hour or less drive away from a potential client, that's a lot cheaper than shipping an amp to and from. But I do get quite a few pros, but not too many whose names you would know. No, no, no. He just liked to take his shirt off and play in old Roman amphitheaters. All right. Well, we got the last 15 minutes, and I am actually caught up with questions for once. I am waiting to get the second set of film scans back, and I'm hoping to have better results out of that second set of scans. Some of you guys who do this weren't here then. I sent off a roll of Tri-X, roll of Portra 400, and a roll of Kodak Gold. And I'm almost done with a roll of T-Max with a yellow filter right now. And then I'm gonna try some HP5 and try some FP4. I might push the HP5 a stop. And my wife found in her closet upstairs an old Nikon that she forgot she had. I say Nikon because I was exposed to American marketing. Nikon, an old 5300. And it's got the free lunch kit lens. I mean, my God, 18 to 140. So I can't imagine this thing looks fantastic. But I did some test shots this morning, and it might be worthwhile using. The camera certainly is. I think this lens is over-promising, but I mean, lenses for this thing are so cheap now. So I think I just added a fourth camera, this 5300. I'm sure it's not going to be anywhere as good as the Fuji for crop sensor, and probably won't have the right as good a color as the classic the Canon 5D Classic. But if this has any of the D700 colors, it might be worth having as well. And maybe I'll just keep it around because 140 mil at a crop sensor, that's what, 220 millimeter equivalent? Yeah, 210 millimeter. So that's a pretty long reach for a relatively small lens. And she had a battery and charger for it and everything. I did take off the Nikon branded strap though, because it was not good. So I'll be playing with this afternoon. Check where the lens was made. Made in Thailand. Yeah. Well, everything is a little bit the wrong way on this Nikon. The brief testing, the manual focus on it sucks. So I'll just be using auto on this. So it won't matter about turning the manual focus which way or that. And as far as the zoom goes, it's kind of the same as I'm used to with that Sigma that I use for the videos. But I don't have any zoom lenses for my other cameras. Everything else is all prime all the time. So I did a little bit of research, and there are some much better zooms available for this, autofocus zooms that don't overpromise. I mean, 18 to 140, my God, you can't expect that to be great. But like maybe later get a 10 to 18 and an 18 to 50 might be a good set of things to have. All right, good to know. I have not had a Nikon before. I've used Nikons in the past, but I've never gotten into the system, and I wouldn't necessarily buy an old uh, D was it D5300. But since I got one, might as well try using it. Any recommendations on a point-to-point tone bender? No. If I were to make a tone bender, I'd make it. If I wanted a tone bender, I'd make it myself and it wouldn't be point to point because you're just asking for microphonics, suspending everything like that. You can if you want to. I've seen it done for a lot of crazy money, basically. The tone bender I had before that I liked was the what's it called? Full drive. I had the full drive. Uh, I don't remember what it was called. It was the white one. It sounded really good. Um, Barry Beck and Zept one approved, and I had a little bias knob inside where you could get the fuzz as crunchy or as smooth as you wanted it. But you play around with it however you want. I've not. I'm the wrong person to ask about buying handmade pedals because if I want a pedal where it's all the secrets have been out there, I'll just make one. But if I were to make a tone bender, I would use some kind of board just so I could keep everything dampened. What's my favorite beer? My two favorite ones I cannot get here without spending an awful lot. I really liked Edelstoff when I was in Vienna. That's one made in Bavaria. And I like London Pride an awful lot. And I could get that here, but I pay an awful lot for the privilege. In locally, I tend to get a local company called Fireside, local brewery. What's the name of it? Can't remember the name of the local brewery, but Fireside Amber, which is very similar in some ways to London Pride. Um, I like Boddingtons and I like Smithwick's, which are British beers that we can get here. Uh, I don't like any IPA. I don't like the current trend to make things as hoppy as possible. It's like I don't need a hot sauce that's like 18 million Scoville. I just want it to taste good and wake my mouth up and make everything else taste better. I don't need it to be a dare. Same thing for hops. People are going crazy with that stuff. But I'm not a beer aficionado the way some of these guys are. I don't I don't really drink whiskey at all, for instance. And Brad knows all that stuff. He's in that world. Yeah, point to point is great until it needs work, and then you know I won't buy a Behringer anything. I don't care if they make me breakfast and paint my house. I'm not going to buy one. They are just a horrible company ethically. Now, if you buy one that's up between you and them, and I'm not judging you for using it, but I will not give them a dime. Thoughts on Soviet EL 84Ms and 74 style amps. Bought 8 from Ukraine for my Black Star Artisan 15. From what I read, they seem to be better able to take the hot biasing. Yeah, it's not really an 84. It's a Russian tube, which is very similar, and it's rated for more. It's 7189 versus an EL 84. It's a 15-watt tube versus or it's a 14-watt tube versus a 12-watt tube. Yeah, absolutely a great choice. You don't have to buy them from Ukraine. I would buy them from the tube store has some tube store branded 7189, so they sort and spec out, so you know what you're gonna be getting and paying for. But if you got 8 from Ukraine that work, you kind of got lucky on that, they are good choices for that amp. The thing about any fuzz pedal, be it a tone bender or whatever, is that especially when they're talking about the fuzz, they're using germanium transistors, and germanium transistors are very affected by temperature and humidity. So it may sound fantastic on Tuesday and sound like shit on Thursday, uh, and your favorite player may have 10 of them, and they at sound check they rotate through them to find the one that's sounding good that day. So it's a finicky thing, and there's a certain amount of random luck in terms of what the sound will be that any given day or any given performance. But when it's on, it is on, and I do like them. but you have to be very careful um, with your expectations. That's one of the reasons the full tone had a little bias pot. You may have a different preferred setting in January than you did in August. And there's nothing wrong with using Boss pedals if you want to use Boss pedals. A lot of great music has been done with Boss pedals. I, would, for the average player, better a Boss delay or chorus than almost anything else, because a boutique chorus pedal can be either very, very bad or very, very expensive, or in some cases both. But when it comes to overdrive, I like the fact that there are a lot of different options on the market. That doesn't mean that an old SD1 is a bad choice or that a blues driver is a bad choice. But, drive circuits are much simpler than time-based circuits. So it's nice to have a big box of crayons when it comes to overdrive and stuff. But I, uh, I have an appreciation for certain Boss pedals quite a bit. Hey JP, I'm glad that worked out well for you. The Runt 50 is a really good amp. The only thing about Friedman's is he's got a lot of models that are on the surface very similar to each other, but they're voiced very differently. And so, the Runt 50 is a good amp on paper. Whether it's the right choice for any one player, I cannot tell you. But if you play one and you like it, it'll keep doing what you like for a long time, and that's what I can say. Are silicon transistors good in a fuzz? Yeah, they can be great in a fuzz. There's nothing wrong with silicon. There's nothing wrong with germanium. Silicon is more stable. You often have very different biasing, and the polarity is often different between a silicon versus germanium. You know, that's a whole kettle of fish. You can design the same circuit with NPNs or PNPs or germanium or silicon, and even if the math says that we should end up at the same place, you just end up in a slightly different place, and that's how things happen. Hey, are we going to add a tone control to this? That's a whole other kettle of fish. Are we going to buffer it, or are we going to keep it leaking the bias? I don't want to get too far into this. I can talk about this one little weird subject for hours, but I think the three of you who would be interested already know everything I have to say, and the rest of you would be like, "Oh, cool, cool, cool. I got to go wash my fish." So, yeah, I'm glad you sent that back. The Benson it's just a hot rod with the other channel being a clone of the clean channel. So in that regard, it's much better than the regular hot rod, but it has the same faults and will catch on fire just the same way. Know any good techs in the Pacific Northwest? I know two really good techs in the Pacific Northwest. Kai Kennedy, who's somewhere in Oregon these days, Kye Kennedy, and Rick Erickson, who's somewhere in the Seattle area. Rick Erickson. And he posted on one of my videos the past day or two. You might be able to just click on him and find his contact information. They're both very, very good techs. Rick Erickson has been doing this longer than anyone else I know, pretty much. I mean, he's a giant. If you like Soundgarden, well, he did their amps. If you like Pearl Jam, he did their amps. If you like the sound of Barracuda, he designed and built that phaser pedal. Kai is also very, very good. Though, as far as I know, he has fewer star players. His knowledge of how to be a tech is just as high, and it's just as high a knowledge. Anyway, he's in Seattle. He's just as high. Uh, but yeah, Rick and Kai are both good recommendations. So Kai is in Bend, Oregon. Okay, good. I've not been Sacramento Bay Area. I did know some people. They have retired. I have not made it to Canada yet. I want to go to Quebec City and Montreal. I'm I'm waiting for the world to get sane, so I don't have to go there as a representative of the insanity down here, or be judged for that. I mean, it's bad enough that I'll be in Montreal or Quebec City, pretty much only speaking English. I don't want to have the rest of it. I don't much care for Hefeweizen. The wheat beers, I find them a little too bland, but I like what I like. Why am I murdering words tonight? I could have used more sleep last night, that's for sure. Sometimes I murder them. Sometimes they deserve it. Sometimes I don't misspeak at all. Those are rare times. Usually the microphone's not on. But I am tired, and it has been 3 hours, and I'm going to have a cup of coffee and then take this bad boy for a stroll and see what life would have looked like in 2013 at 210 millimeters. So let me push this and give you guys a final nag about liking before you go, if and you do. It does help. And there's Rick's business page, aviatoraudio.com. Yeah, between Rick and Kai, if you're in the Pacific Northwest, one or both of those will take good care of you. And I recommend them both highly. I will see you guys next time. Thanks.